So some of this will be new information, some of it will be a review. And I'm really hoping that what it will do is help to empower you to move through your own grief and losses when you're faced with that, as well as empower you to, I'm going to use the word empower again, empower your friends or family who are facing loss of different kinds. So navigating the mystery of grief is what we're calling this today. Just a little bit about my background. Graduated from Cairn University with a BSW and went right into Rutgers and got my MSW, BSW being Bachelor of Social Work and Master's degree in Clinical Social Work. I'm a trained psychotherapist and I can't stop learning. It doesn't show here, but I spent a decade in Japan. After I graduated from my master's degree shortly thereafter, I took an opportunity to go to Japan and do something completely unrelated to therapy, counseling. But it was there that I discovered ancient ways of healing, and it became a hobby of mine. So when I came back to the United States, I was lost. And my plan to go on for my doctorate, it just felt too big. At that point, I'd been disconnected from psychology for quite a while. So I followed my passion of alternative healing. Went to massage therapy school and I kept learning through that. Different types of body work, craniosacral therapy, and then I found energy psychology. And when I found energy psychology, I went, oh, I'm home. It was a combination of everything I believe, everything that I had studied so far. It combined energy work and the aspects of psychology, and I started using it in my bodywork practice. Crazily enough, not only did their physical bodies heal faster, but we found more holistic healing, mind, body, spirit healing. So the energy psychology technique that I'm talking about is called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, and it's a technique that I use most in my practice today. I transitioned from bodywork into psychotherapy again, which was not quite the right fit anymore. A lot of heavier diagnosable cases, and I had paid my, trust me, I paid my dues. Had my car set on fire. I've been assaulted when I worked in mental health. So I eventually transitioned into coaching, and I use all of these skills to help my clients reprogram their mind, reprogram their feelings, heal from the things that are holding them back from what it is they want to create. And you can see I just continue to learn. I can't learn enough. So all of these things I will bring in to help my clients now, help empower them to move forward and create abundant lives. Okay, so I am in private practice, and that's enough about me for that point. Okay, so what is, there we go. What is grief? Sounds like an obvious thing, but can I get a little feedback from you? How would you describe grief? You're hurt.
Emotionally upset.
You're emotionally upset. Okay. Okay. A sense of loss. Yes.
It's like a heaviness.
A heaviness. Good. Yep. Anybody else? Yes.
It's like a void.
A void. Yes. Yes. Okay. This is cut off here, but grief was an acute distress over affliction or loss, is what dictionary.com. We don't say Webster's anymore. We go to dictionary.com. And so there are many different, obviously, definitions of grief that we have. Sometimes we don't even recognize grief. So if you don't mind, I'd like to read you just a little story. Would that be okay? All right. Many years ago, a little baby was born to this world, but her mother was unable to give her the life and opportunities she knew the baby deserved. The mother made the heartbreaking decision to gift her, the baby, to a family who could provide for her in all ways, in ways she was unable to provide herself. So the baby grew up knowing from the words of her parents that she was loved and wanted, but she could only allow those words in so far. She had a mental understanding of it, but didn't have the ability to open her heart to the truth. Without any knowledge of her birth mother, she navigated life as best she could, finding happiness and some success. But underneath it all, there was a deep ache, a deep longing for her birth mother, which was the undercurrent throughout every moment in her life. As the years progressed, so did technology, and Ancestry.com was born. And a loving friend gently but firmly led her to this water. And when that DNA test arrived, she placed it in plain sight, but ignored it for weeks. She had experienced such a painful loss, as well as a perceived rejection from the moment she was born. And taking that next step to reconnect was terrifying. But one evening when she was all alone, she told herself to get over herself and managed, after about 10 minutes, to work up enough saliva to spit in the cup. When the results came, I was thrilled to learn of my heritage. Who would have thunk? I am Welsh, English, Irish, and some kind of Western European. That was something that I had always needed to know. But what I needed to know even more was, who was my mother? So it took more courage to actually click the tab on the DNA matches. And when I did, I saw hundreds and hundreds of matches, but none closer than a fourth cousin. And I don't know if you've ever worked with a family tree, but it's not as easy as 4, 3, 2, 1. It was so overwhelming, I didn't know where to begin, and I closed the tab. But a couple of months later, I received a message through Ancestry, and it was from a third cousin who believed her mother was my second cousin. And that hit me like a tidal wave. Shock, fear, excitement, hope. I couldn't even grasp the emotions I was feeling. I couldn't give them definition. But I knew I was feeling something because I couldn't stop crying. And it wasn't until I spoke to a longtime mentor and fellow psychotherapist that she pointed out what I was blind to. Heidi, she said, it is 50 years of grief that you are feeling. 50 years of unacknowledged, unexpressed grief that have been suddenly unleashed. And all I needed to do was think of my family, think that they had open arms for me, to make me dissolve into a puddle. With every message I got from them and every message I sent to them, there were tears. I couldn't even pick up the phone until probably 3 months ago to speak to them, and I found them 3 years ago now. So much grief. I couldn't talk without crying. So I did that, though. I cried and I cried and I cried for years. And during those years, they began a quiet but earnest search for who my mother might be. We thought that we were close a few times, but the shoe didn't fit, and it remained a mystery. But then, a year ago, this past May, I got word that a little bill in the Pennsylvania legislature had finally passed into law, and this law would allow me to receive my birth certificate, and with it, the name of my mother. So, long story short, because I could go on and on, I found her, and she's always loved me, and she's always wanted me. And we are developing this wonderful relationship. It's really a dream come true. And very, very interesting. I notice that I resist connecting with her. As much as my heart is longing to be by her side, there's part of me that is afraid I will lose her again. It's grief. It's not fun, but it's real. Grief comes in so many different forms, and we all experience it. So for me, the grief was the loss of a mother. It wasn't a death, but it was a loss of something very basic and important to me. So let's look at some other types of grief. Obviously, the first one that comes to mind for many of us is death, people, and pets. Please, please, please do not minimize the loss of your pets. If your pets are important to you, the grief is real and deep. I've heard people say, oh, it's just a cat, just a dog. No, if that's not what your pet was to you, the grief is a real thing. Please do not dismiss it. The unavailability of a partner. This is something you may have never thought of, but it actually struck me recently. My husband has worked overnight for years. I would say probably 10 years. And so most of the evenings and the nights, I'm on my own. My daughter's at home, but my bed is, well, my dog is next to me. Norbert, my grumpy dog. But I realized recently how much I miss him. And so there's some loss there. There's some grief there because someone who all my life, all my married life, I expected to have someone share my bed every single night. It's a loss. And so it's very important for me to acknowledge that. Divorce and separation, right? That is a loss. And there's a grief process that we go through when this happens to us. Even if it's not you personally, if it's your parents or friends, who has had friends that have divorced, right? So if you have feelings about that, please don't dismiss them. Friend relationships, health. If your health changes, right? And your ability to move or to do things changes, it is a loss. If there's a mental issue, a mental health issue, if a parent develops Alzheimer's, that is a loss. And so you will go through grief. Moving can be a loss because you've lost your community. Job, identity, your purpose. Suddenly, if you maybe change careers or something happens where you can't continue on in your purpose in life, for practical reasons, maybe you need to go back to work and stop living your dream, that would be a loss. Empty nesters, right? It's a loss. If you lose your dreams, if you have a loss in finances, a miscarriage or abortion, even spirituality, if your ideas are challenged, suddenly you find yourself not knowing what you believe anymore, that can be a loss. So I'm sure I haven't exhausted the list, but my purpose to point this out is to help you understand that grief is not just when someone dies. Anytime there's a loss, I want you to acknowledge the depth of feeling that may be there for you. Do not minimize it, and do not let anybody else minimize that for you. The stages of grief. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was the pioneer when it came to grief. And she identified these 5 stages of grief that we go through. And originally we thought it was very linear, that we go through denial and then anger and then bargaining and then depression and then finally acceptance. And then as we worked with this more, we started noticing, well, people would sometimes go to denial to bargaining, to anger to depression, and then back to denial. So it is not linear, but very often you will experience almost all of these. Maybe not everything, but this is likely what you could expect. And in dealing with something so big as grief, the knowledge of what might be coming up for you can be empowering. Just knowing that, oh, I just denied it. right? Aaron, one of your first reactions to your friend was, no, this can't be true. That's an example of denial, right? Knowing that anger might be on the way. Okay, so I'm empowered because I know that that could be part of what I experience. Anger at the person or the situation. So don't make yourself wrong for anger. Bargaining with God, the universe. I'll do anything, but please give me my job back. Depression. This is an area where we feel hopeless and powerless. Things just don't matter anymore. And then finally hopefully we reach acceptance. Okay? This thing has happened, and now I'm willing to deal with it. So these are the 5 stages of grief that everybody in the field is very well aware of. Jan Luther is an EFT master, and EFT is emotional freedom technique. That's the tapping thing that I do, the energy psychology thing I do. And there are 9 masters in the United States, and that's it. There's never going to be any more. That training has now closed. But she is one of the original masters, and she dealt with grief a lot. It was a big part of her practice, and she identified 5 aspects of grief. So we have the stages, but in order to move through them, it's very, very helpful to be aware of the aspects of grief that we may encounter. So the first one she identifies is, she calls it getting your head around it. Dealing with the shock of the news. Okay? So this probably would come in around the beginning, when you get the news, maybe when you're in denial. And very often how we deal with things like that, we make a vow. We make a decision. I'll never love again. I'll never trust again. And vows have a way of limiting our life. Okay? So be aware. I just invite you to be aware. If you go through a loss, try to be aware of any vows that you make that will help you navigate the situation. In the moment, it may help protect you and may help you to move forward. But vows that stay with us are not helpful, not like this. Okay? Another aspect is regretting the past. This is where all the I should haves come in. The guilt may come in. Guilt for doing something or not doing something. Okay? Just knowing that the should haves and the could haves and the would haves may come up, and that in order to move through your grief in an empowered way, we need to have compassion for ourselves. Acknowledge that this might feel really true. Like, I should have taken the keys away from that person and they wouldn't have had an accident. Yeah, maybe, but don't hold on to that. Let go of those shoulds and that guilt. The third aspect is imagined future disappointments. When I learned this, I kind of like, what does that mean? Thinking about the future and what could have been. I'll never be able to run again, right? Maybe someone who had to have their leg amputated. Again, acknowledging these disappointments and moving through them, very, very important. The fourth aspect, everyone else's reactions. We're going to talk about this a little bit more after a few slides. But when we go through a loss, everybody else is going to have a reaction, right? And most of those people are well-intentioned, but very often they don't know what to say. They don't know what to do. And it can be very painful. So knowing that they may not have the information or the knowledge to treat you in the way you need in the moment, that they're doing their best, will help you to hopefully not take it personally. Because people say the stupidest things. Oh my goodness. I remember I laugh at it now just because I'm still just, it's just this unbelievable thing. When I was growing up, I was a teenager, and there was a couple in our church who divorced, friends of my parents. And they had a daughter who was my age. And my family, we were out shopping one day, and as we went through the checkout, we noticed the daughter was the checking us out. And my poor father, he made a joke about the divorce. We walked away. I'm like, Dad, why would you say that? He goes, I don't know. I'm like, go back and apologize, please. And he's like, I can't, I'm just too humiliated. People don't know how to react, and they stumble over themselves, and they say things they may not mean. So this is an aspect of grief that you may need to deal with. Okay? Forgiveness. In order to move through grief fully, forgiveness is a large piece of the grieving process. And who do we need to forgive? Sometimes it's ourselves. Sometimes it's God, the person who died, the person who fired you, your body who may have let you down. But with forgiveness, a caveat that I always am very emphatic about with myself, with my clients, do not forgive until you are ready, and don't let anyone push you into forgiveness. I've had that experience. Talking about abuse, and I don't mind being vulnerable. I have a past where I was abused, and I had a therapist at one point. In fact, it was a tandem. It was a husband-wife team, and they thought they were helping me. Oh, come on, you can forgive. It'll be good. You're doing it for yourself, not for him. I was not ready. Please, totally blew up. Do not forgive until you're ready. But when you are, do it for yourself. Okay? All right. So why am I asking you and informing you and inviting you to be aware of these things and to deal with these emotions that come up? Because our emotion affects our body. It affects everything. But our bodies are like sponges. And it absorbs our emotions if we don't move through them. And even if we do eventually move through them, sometimes the shock of news sinks in, literally into our physical being. Anger, that's the liver. Grief is in the lungs. And from my own experience, I saw this. One of my best friends in the world, who was a woman who was old enough to be my mother, but she became just a cherished friend of mine. She passed away a number of years ago, and 3 months after she passed, I developed bacterial pneumonia. I never get sick. And bacterial pneumonia is not like viral pneumonia. You don't just catch it. Somehow it got in there and it settled in my lungs. And I believe it was because of the grief. And it took 2 very strong doses of antibiotics and some incredible essential oils to help me move through that. And had I not internalized the grief, I may have not gotten pneumonia. Worry, stress, fear, you can see this, how it all affects the body. So not only does grief affect us emotionally, socially, spiritually, it also affects us physically through loss. We're going to talk about how we can help ourselves. But how do we help others? As I mentioned before, even well-intentioned words can hurt. So I do have a handout, if you would like, over there, if you would like some to take home with you, of things to say and things not to say. Very often, we, or people who are trying to comfort us, don't know what to say, and we're uncomfortable with emotion. We're uncomfortable that they're hurting. And so sometimes we say nothing at all. Okay? If you can't speak, please give a hug. Please be there for the person. And here's a what not to say. They're in a better place. Don't say that. Please don't say that. Instead, communicate that you're sorry. I am so sorry you're suffering. I am so sorry you're hurting right now. What not to say. Please let me know if there's anything I can do. Those are nice words. But somebody who has a loss or who is grieving is not going to take you up on that. Right? If you really want to help, say, hey, I'd love to come over and do a few loads of laundry for you. I would love to bake a casserole and bring it over for you Tuesday. I would love to take you out for a drink next week. Be specific. Don't just let it out there. Don't give them the responsibility to ask you for help. What not to say. You can always have another child or another pet. You can always get another dog. What to say instead? Tell me about your loved one. Talking about this is balm to the wound of grief. Talking about the loss. It may be difficult, but it's something that they probably need. They need an ear. They need a shoulder. So, yes, okay, sorry, I double typed that. All right. What not to say? Well, this was going to happen eventually. Right? People say these things. Instead, say, you must really miss them. Or you must really miss your job. What not to say? Well, you're handling this better than I expected. Guess what? You probably don't see how they're handling it. They have their game face on. Instead, you could say, you might not be feeling great, but that's okay. What not to say? Nothing at all. I covered this. But what to say instead would be, remember when? Inviting the person to share memories can often be very healing. Okay. So the sheet that I have over there actually has some other things on there, but very, very similar. So if you would like, and if you find that there are not enough copies, just let us know. We'll run off some more. Okay. So, how do you deal with feelings of loss? What is your first go-to? How do you react when you've had a loss? Anybody like to share? Erin.
I write.
You write. You mentioned journaling.
And even my mother this time was like, she was in California with my uncle because he has pancreatic cancer and he's getting chemo and surgery. But she answered at like 5 in the morning and she's like, you should write in your journal. Like, I think that would be good for you.
Yeah. So for you, writing really helps you to process.
With anything
Mhm.
grieving.
Wonderful. Anybody else? How do you react to loss? Sure.
To talk to people that know that other person or know the situation or whatever that may be,
Mm-hmm.
that get it or whatever.
Yeah. So talking for you is important. Great. So we do the best we can. We do the best we can. Shutting down actually is a form of survival, right? But at some point, we need to get what's stuck in the body, stuck in the mind. We need to get that out. So how do we navigate grief in an empowered way? The first thing I invite you to do is to allow yourself to feel. Just allow your feelings to be what they are without judgment. If you're angry, allow that, right? If you're heartbroken, allow that. Just give yourself permission to be. There's no supposed to. even if people tell you that you should be over this by now. Place no time limits. I don't know if Kim said it or Erin said it or somebody or both of you maybe said it, but there is no timeline of grief. Everybody grieves differently. Okay? So if you've lost somebody and a year later you still feel that loss acutely and someone says, aren't you over that by now? No, and there's no wrongness there. Create safe spaces for yourself. Right? What do I mean by that? If you don't want to go out to church, you don't want to go out with your friends, don't. Not until you're ready. I had a client who lost her husband, and the choir, after several months was like, aren't you going to come back to choir? She's like, I don't want to. She told me, I don't want to. To them, she kept making excuses. Her friends kept inviting her to parties. She's like, Heidi, I don't want to. They thought she should be ready. No. So create safe spaces for yourself. Allow yourself to be in your home or where in an environment that feels supportive for you. Okay? Release self-judgment and demands that you put on yourself. Like, I should do the laundry. I should be cleaning the house. Well, guess what? You just had a whole heck of a lot of something land on you. It's okay just to give yourself permission to step back and maybe not clean the house like you normally do. Ask your husband to do it. Okay. A few more. Allow outside support in. People that you trust. Shara, you said the people who get it, that's who you talk to. So allow those people to be in your life. Sometimes we do need to kind of shut down, curl up, and just be ourselves, but there comes a time when it's important that we allow ourselves to be supported. And that can be friends, it can be in therapy. Body work is amazing. I've had people come to me for massage right after someone passes, and something about that is so deeply healing. There's not a word spoken, it's just the body moving through grief along with the massage therapy. Okay. EFT and tapping, of course, I'm going to put that in there. It's mind, body, spirit work. Support groups. Intuitive guidance. So those of you who have been to our Wine, Women, and I want to say Wine, Women, and Woo, because that's what so I'm just going to call it Wine, Women, and Woo. We've had 2 people now in 2 years who are very talented in communicating with the other side. If that's what you need to do, allow yourself. We can refer you if you need names. This is something you may not have thought to do, but communicate with the loss itself. Talk to the job you lost. Talk to the leg that's not healing. Talk to the person who has developed Alzheimer's. Even if they can't respond back to you, you are expressing what's inside you. Communicate with what you have lost. I invite my clients very often to talk to their bodies. We tap and we talk to our bodies. We tap and we talk to the subconscious. Communication is so important, right? Communicate with the loss itself. And then honor the loss. And what do I mean by that? When my friend passed away, I bought a piece of jewelry that was in her honor. And it's something that I wear and I keep close to me. You can plant a tree. You can purchase a star and name it after the person. But honor the loss. Allow that person to live inside you, or that thing that you've lost to continue on in some way. Okay. Opening to healing. Self-compassion. Please, please, please. Deep, deep self-compassion. Allow yourself that compassion. The same level of compassion you would give to your best friend. You deserve it. Massive self-care. Erin's good at that. Okay. Along with the other things like bodywork, prayer, meditation, yoga, spa days, quiet spaces. Again, express your feelings, express your thoughts, your fears, and release them from your body. So, and in that, you need to have a mind-body technique. Talk therapy is great for certain things, but it does not release what's in the body. Okay, so something like tapping, where you're marrying the mind, body, and spirit. Exercise sometimes, even going through some things in your mind while you're moving your body can help to release that. Breathing can help as well. All right, so we've got some repeats here. Allow yourself to be taken care of. Ask and receive support. So a lot of us can't ask in the moment, and so hopefully you'll have friends who will be able to come to you. But when you're ready, ask. Because there are people who want to help you. And ask the right people, the people who get it. This is a biggie. Say no when you want to. My client, they wanted to draw her back to choir because they thought it would be good for her. Her friends wanted her to go to lunch because they thought it would be good for her, and she was not ready. And so our work centered around saying no. Just say no. No, thank you. I appreciate the offer. I'm just not ready. And trust yourself, trust your intuition, because you know what you need. Some of us do need to curl up, and some of us may need to go out and be among friends. Just trust yourself. And we talked about the grief timeline. And then when it's time, give yourself permission to move on. A lot of us who go through grief have difficult giving ourselves the permission because we'll feel like it's a betrayal. We're feeling disloyal. We feel guilt. We feel that if we move on, the significance of the person or the thing diminishes. If we're not grieving, we might think that it means we no longer love that person, or that thing was not important to us. So I invite you to work through that with a therapist, with somebody, because you deserve to move on. You need to move on at some point. And it's not a betrayal. It's not disloyal. And there's nothing to feel wrong or guilty about. Okay. Helpful tools to navigate grief. Mentioned talk therapy, that can get you to a certain point. So a trusted counselor, energy psychology tapping. Access consciousness, I'm going to introduce you to a couple of questions from Access, a very powerful spiritual tool that I use. Essential oils and crystals. So, because I'm woo and because I'm me, I do have more handouts over there that list essential oils for grief and loss, as well as different stones and crystals that you can use. So I won't take the time to go through them all, but I do have some things here. If you would like to come here and ask me, I can give you a drop of certain things to help you move through. But essential oils can be diffused in the room. Some of them can be ingested. So do your research for that. Some of them can be inhaled. And many of them can be applied to the body, but not all of them. So again, I do have some caveats on there, but make sure you do your own research, especially if you have sensitivities. You can apply drops to the bath. You can even make an elixir for drinking. Some of them you can actually drink. Apply a cotton ball and place in your pillowcase. Okay, so I'll just run quickly. Geranium is wonderful. Acceptance, and these are all Young Living blends. That's a Young Living blend. Frankincense, it's not a blend, but that's a powerful antidepressant. Valor, which is a Young Living blend, helps you give you courage and confidence. Joy is very uplifting. So I have many here, and I have a little recipe as well to make your own healing grief blend. So we'll have those over there if you'd like. And I have them, many of them up here to test if you'd like. And then crystals. So many people think that crystals are crazy and they're weird, it's just woo. There's very specific science to crystals. We actually have a crystalline essence ourselves. Very interesting. We're liquid. But because we're human and because we're liquid and not a solid, our energy and our vibration is very volatile, moves in and out. But crystals are amazing because their structure stays the same. And and I wish I could remember, maybe somebody here will know, there's a law in physics that it's like the strongest energy wins, or the most stable energy wins. So if you put 3, 10, however many grandfather clocks against a wall, their pendulums will eventually begin to swing in synchronicity. You know, as women, if we spend a lot of time together, our cycles sync up. So it's the same idea. Crystals have this structure, this energy that emits from them, and they don't change. So when we have crystals around, the law of entrainment, thank you, Heidi. It finally came. I'll wake up and like, what is that law? I was doing all this research. The law of entrainment. We entrain to the crystal's vibration. It's very specific science. So it's not just woo. So crystals that can help. Apache tears, very grounding. Amethyst is very soothing, and it comes in all different forms. But here's a lepidolite can help. And again, there's a list over there that you can have. This is a beautiful one. This is a rose quartz crystal, and there's so many different ways you can use crystals. You can tuck them in your bra. You can put them in your pocket. You can put them under your pillow. You can, again, do your research, but you can create gem elixirs. You can drop a crystal into water, and water is so programmable. It soaks up the vibrations, and its structure changes to that of the crystal. And so you can actually ingest that and absorb the benefits. You can create crystal grids to empower yourself. You can wear it as jewelry. Many of us do that. Okay. So the crystals. So that's kind of a woo way, but very, very empowering. All right. A question that might help you. Access consciousness is this body of work that's just amazing and dovetails beautifully with EFT. And it's based on coming to a space of no judgment about anything, which is pretty unrealistic. Like, we'll never get there. But that's the ideal. That's what we shoot for. Because when we have no opinion, we have no judgment, we have total freedom of choice. One of the most powerful questions, and we live in the question. That's the invitation with access consciousness. Because when we make a judgment, then we create limitation. So what else is possible here? If you're going through grief, or you've lost your job, or you're struggling with the loss of health or mobility, a very powerful question to ask is, what else is possible? And just keep asking the question. The mind itself loves questions. And when you give your mind a question, guess what happens? It goes and searches for an answer. When you give yourself a judgment, it stays right there. I'll never get over this, okay? Right? But if you ask what else is possible, or you ask this other empowering question, how does it get any better than this? How does it get better than this? Your mind is going to look for the solution. Mind's a powerful thing. And it can be the way to help you get through this if you give it the right tools. What else is possible? How does it get any better than this? I invite you to try it. I recently, very sadly, lost one of my very best friends. She didn't pass away, but there was some craziness and a narcissist that was involved, and somebody threw me under the bus. And anyway, the relationship blew up very, very sadly. She's like a soulmate to me. And I kept trying to turn it over and over in my mind and I was torturing myself, and I wasn't allowing myself to move on. And the question that got me through it was, how does it get any better than this? How does it get any better than this? how does it get any better than this? And I said that to myself over and over and over throughout the day for several days, and suddenly my energy shifted and I was able to let her go. I'm still moving through a grief process, but that torturous place is in my past. Okay, we're at time? Sorry, okay. So tapping for grief and loss. If anybody would like to ask me about tapping, I can give you more information, but it's a very, very powerful thing to help you move through. Okay, so we'll wind it up there since we're past. Thank you very much.